Yes, I believe that both the United States and Russia take the threat of nuclear war very seriously. Both nations understand the ramifications of nuclear conflict, basically the termination of the existence of the state. Um, and both nations um, have in place um, measures that help prevent inadvertent nuclear conflict. As you indicated, if either nation was to feel that their existential, that their very existence was at risk, then they would use nuclear weapons to defend. Um, and part of the nuclear deterrence strategy on the part of the United States, at least, is to leave open the option of using nuclear weapons in non-nuclear um, circumstances. But personally, I believe that even these options are purely theatrical, that the United States would never use nuclear weapons preemptively because they understand the consequences of that action. It's just that politically, it's difficult for the United States to articulate um, a new doctrine. Joe Biden had promised when he ran for president this last time that he would enact what's called the sole purpose doctrine, meaning that the sole purpose of America's nuclear arsenal was for deterrence and that we would never use weapons preemptively. But the establishment, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, has pressured him away from saying that because they say that that would free up other nations like Iran, other to act irresponsibly because they would not fear the potential consequences of their actions, that we must make it ambiguous. Um, that's fine. I mean, it's not fine, but that's that. But we know where Joe Biden's heart is. He's the ultimate authority. He's the ultimate decision maker. And in his heart of hearts, I think he would not use nuclear weapons except in a case where the very existence of the United States was at risk. And I also believe that that's the same for Vladimir Putin.
Okay, thank you. I think you made many people happy with this, what you just said. So the next question for me is, what is Russia's dead hand, or in other words, I think it's called perimeter. Does it have different levels of awareness, sensitivity, or levels of automation, or is it dumb and either on or off? Do you have information about this?
Well, first of all, I think we need to understand that if dead hand exists, and I believe it does, if it exists, um, it would be one of the closest held secrets in Russia. So any information I have would be from open source materials, um, which means who knows if it's true or not. We've seen several Russian sources who would be in a position to know about this and have talked about it. So I will speak about dead hand based upon that information, but I hope everybody who's listening understands that I don't have any firsthand personal experience with dead hand. And if I did, it would probably be derived from classified work I did with the United States government, and then I couldn't answer your question.
Yeah.
So this answer, I believe to be fundamentally correct, but I can't put my hand on a Bible and swear that everything I'm about to tell you is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. It's merely information that I've garnered from a variety of sources, put through a filter of credibility, and I believe that it is relatively accurate.
Okay.
Dead hand or perimeter is a system that the Soviet Union first considered back in the 1980s when it became clear that the United States had acquired a potential first strike capability. In particular, the Ohio-class submarine equipped with Trident, the D5 missiles, I believe, that if these Ohio-class submarines came close enough to the Soviet shore and fired these missiles on a flatter trajectory, given the accuracy of the warheads, the United States would be able to eliminate the bulk of the Soviet Union's silo-based missiles. And if they achieve complete surprise, could eliminate the majority of the Soviet Union's road mobile missiles, who would be in garrison and therefore very vulnerable to attack. And then the idea, the concept, at least from the Soviet perspective, was with so many of their missiles eliminated, the United States would be able to use their missile defense to shoot down whatever missiles were launched in response. And therefore, the Soviet Union has lost its deterrence capability. So Dead Hand was designed to create the conditions where a decapitation strike was no longer possible. Another concern of the Soviet Union was the Pershing II missile that the United States had put into Europe, an intermediate range nuclear missile. It had a time of flight of between 7 and 12 minutes from time of launch to hitting Moscow. So the fear was that the United States would attempt to launch a decapitation strike to take out Soviet leadership, and then paralyze the Soviet defense, to delay their ability to respond, and then this first strike could come in and take everything out. So to alleviate that, a number of missiles, and I believe these were silo-based missiles, the NATO designation might be the SS-19, were converted to carry a communications package that would, and they'd be in a silo. And then the Dead Hand system is a sensitive sensors, seismic sensors, radiation sensors, and then also a mechanism of determining whether or not communications had been halted, meaning automatic signals are sent out from strategic communications centers, basically saying, we're alive, we're alive, we're alive, we're alive. And as long as those signals are going out and the seismic sensors haven't gone off detecting a nuclear blast, or radiation sensors haven't gone up detecting fallout, then Dead Hand is fine. And it was also made so that it had a human component to it, meaning there was a human there who would look at the sensors and make a decision to push the button. But it also has the ability to go fully automated in case that human component is taken out by a nuclear strike. So let's say the United States launches its decapitation strike, and it's fired its missiles, and they're coming in, and boom, all of a sudden the we are alive signal ends. And then the radiation sensors detect the presence of radioactive fallout, and the seismic sensors are detecting evidence of nuclear explosion. Dead Hand launches these SS-19 missiles that have the communications package, and they fly over the Soviet Union, broadcasting automatic launch codes. And every system that receives this launch code automatically fires their, whatever surviving missiles are there, automatically get fired towards the United States. The Dead Hand, meaning that you killed me, but I'm still firing the system. Now, concern came because of the vulnerability of the SS-19 in the silo, that a first strike could take them out as well. So the Soviets did a redundancy, and initially it was done with the SS-20 road mobile missile. It was given a similar communications package. I believe it might be called GROM or GROM. There's a term they use for the name. I apologize, my brain is malfunctioning right now. But they created a regiment of these nine missiles, and the regiment would always have at least 3 of these missiles deployed in the field. And in high risk sensor, they put more in the field. And these road mobile missiles were the same thing. If the system, if Dead Hand detected the system, then these road mobile missiles would fire their communications package. The problem came in 1987 when Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev signed the INF Treaty. The SS-20, of course, is an INF system. So what happened was, between the treaty going into force, which was in June of 1988, these SS-20s were taken out of service sometime later in 1988. They needed to be replaced. So the Soviets used the SS-25 system that was produced at Vodkensk as well. And they called this one Syrena, siren. And again, the idea was to take an SS-25 missile, instead of putting a nuclear warhead on it, put the communications package, and then create a regiment of Syrena missiles that would do the same thing. And they did that. I don't want to bore people, but it played a role in our inspection history. The production of the Syrena missile led to a crisis because the Soviets didn't want these missiles inspected by the inspectors. So, yep, there it is in the book. I talk about it right up front. The prologue, I speak of it, and then later on I explain what it is. But anyways, that's our little footnote in history is in the inspectors. But Syrena was deployed. Now the SS-25 has, of course, become an outmoded system. There are SS-27s as to follow on. And it's my belief that each time the Soviets upgraded their road mobile system, that they also upgraded a regiment with a communications package that keeps dead hand alive. Whether or not they've upgraded the SS-19, I believe they have, whatever systems in a silo, but a combination of road mobile missiles and silo-based missiles that are equipped with these communications packages, I believe are still in existence in the Soviet Union or in Russia today, and that dead hand is in fact a viable system. I could be wrong. I believe dead hand existed. It makes sense for dead hand to continue to exist today, but I can't say with 100% certainty that the Russian government may have, in the interest of cost, to reduce costs, etc., eliminated it or put it into mothballs, meaning that it's not active. Dead hand made sense when the United States and the Soviet Union were preparing to attack each other. But sometime after the fall of the Soviet Union, our nations decided that we would de-target our missiles. That means that the missiles that are in silos, et cetera, no longer had pre-programmed targets, that they all basically have no targets. This means that in order to go to war, you'd have to target the missiles. You'd have to insert the targets. That means that dead hand is impractical, because if your missiles have no target and dead hand launches the communications missile, where are your missiles going to go? They're going to launch and they're just going to sort of go wherever they want. So I think there's a possibility that dead hand was mothballed, or if it wasn't mothballed, that positive control was taken over, meaning that humans would keep dead hand inactive until missiles had been programmed with targets. And then at that point, dead hand would be activated, because it only makes sense if you have warheads that have received a target. So who knows where we are today? It's the bottom line though is we need to live in a world where we don't need a dead hand, where we don't need a perimeter, where we don't need Syrena missiles, no matter how cool they are from an inspection standpoint. That's irrelevant. They're weapons that are expensive, and ultimately they're weapons that, if they're ever used, means the end of the world. So why build them? So we need to be working that direction. But I'm trying to answer your question about dead hand, so that's my understanding of it.